Well, folks, it's official. The Denver Broncos have finally accepted that they may be the worst team in the NFL at drafting and developing quarterbacks. So instead of trying to draft another one only for him to end up an assistant manager at JCPenney a few years later, they said, hey Seahawks, take our draft picks and our good young players and just give us a quarterback who's already good, because we can't do this anymore. Honestly, I don't blame them. Russell Wilson becoming the new quarterback of the Denver Broncos is going to have ripple effects across both the NFL and fantasy football, and I want to talk about both. But before I do, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and ring that little bell so you never miss an upload. Okay, as far as real football is concerned, the AFC West. Good lord. I'm a Derek Carr fan. I think he's a very solid quarterback, so the fact that that meme of the clown hiding amongst all the soldiers kind of applies to him as far as quarterbacks in this division go, it says a lot. This is going to be an absolute gauntlet for the division crown. Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the NFL. Justin Herbert looks poised to take a step forward and potentially enter the discussion for top 5. And Russell Wilson was also consensus top 5 just a couple years ago. Ultimately, I think the Broncos make the playoffs and are a top 5 Super Bowl contender. They're pretty much following the Rams blueprint, and we saw how it worked out for them. The Rams had one of the best defenses in the league in 2020, not to mention plenty of offensive weapons as well. The only thing they needed was to not have Jared Goff running the offense. The Broncos, same situation. Elite defense, high upside playmakers on offense. Only thing they needed was to get Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater as far away from their team as possible. Now, I do want to mention the Broncos have not seen the last of Drew Lock, as they are scheduled to face the Seahawks in Seattle this upcoming season. I'm sure the Broncos are pretty psyched about that, because that game will probably feature the most passes Drew Lock has ever completed to Denver players. Now for the fantasy football implications of this trade. First of all, I'd like to pour one out for my guy Noah Fant. Noah, I have long been intrigued by your talent. I've drafted you, held on to you, and started you many times in the past, probably too many times. But I was hoping that one day your athleticism and opportunity might lead to a full-fledged breakout and, dare I say, consistency. Unfortunately, you've gone from having Drew Lock as your quarterback to having Drew Lock as your quarterback. RIP Noah Fant's fantasy prospects. Taken from us way too soon. But what about everyone else? Look, if you need me to tell you that Russell Wilson going to the Broncos is an upgrade for literally every player on that team, then you probably also need me to tell you that the sky is blue, the grass is green, and don't eat the yellow snow. But there are a lot of variables when it comes to predicting the Broncos offense in 2022 and who exactly this trade is going to benefit the most. Not only do the Broncos have a new quarterback, but they also have a new head coach, and both that quarterback and head coach are dealing with very different personnel than what they had on their old teams. So it makes drawing comparisons and trying to find parallels almost impossible. I know there are some Jerry Jeudy truthers out there that think he's headed for fantasy superstardom, and while the Russ trade is obviously a boost for him, I'm not taking it that far. People are looking at the Packers offense and saying, look, Nathaniel Hackett loves to feature his #1 wide receiver. Judy's gonna go crazy. To which I respond, Hackett featured his #1 wide receiver because it was Devontae freaking Adams. I like Jerry Jeudy, but this Broncos offense has a lot of playmakers. It's a much more balanced group than Green Bay has had the past few years. They have no reason to force feed anyone. I think Jeudy projects more as a mid-range wide receiver too. And just like it's difficult to compare Hackett's old team to the current Denver Broncos, it's just as hard to compare Wilson's old team to them. Try and figure out who Russ's new Metcalf and Lockett are from a profile standpoint, and you'll quickly realize he doesn't have a Metcalf and Lockett. In Seattle, Metcalf was the big physical receiver, 6'4", 235, while Lockett was the smaller speedster who every time Russ launched one of his rainbow balls, you could pretty safely assume Lockett was about to come into frame. On the Broncos, Courtland Sutton is actually their biggest receiver, so if you absolutely had to try and draw a comparison, he'd be the Metcalf, right? Nope. His usage actually is more comparable to Lockett's. In fact, he and Lockett were neck and neck when it comes to average depth of target this past season. Now, I'm not saying Courtland Sutton is going to become some alpha zombie combination of both Metcalf and Lockett. Not at all. What I'm saying is it's just really hard to draw a one-to-one comparison from the offense that Russell Wilson is coming from and the offense he's going to. And that's without even mentioning maybe my favorite beneficiary of this whole thing, Tim Patrick. The Seahawks' target distribution was as narrow as any team in the league. It was Metcalf, Lockett, or nothing. Their #3 wide receiver, Freddie Swain, earned a whopping 2.4 targets per game. The Broncos, meanwhile, actually have a good #3 wide receiver, one that they signed to a 3-year, $34 million extension during this past season. Tim Patrick, even if you take out the games Jerry Jeudy missed in 2021, was still targeted 5 times per game. Now, of course, new coach, new quarterback, so it doesn't mean that those tendencies are going to carry over, right? But I really think that Patrick demanded that target share just because of his talent, and I don't think Hackett and Wilson are going to be blind to that. He's going to be involved. So why is he my favorite beneficiary of this trade? Well, because when it comes to fantasy, he's going to be the cheapest of these options. By a lot. And when it comes to a new offense where we don't really know who the quarterback is going to lean on or who the coaches are going to prefer, your best bet is to just grab some stock in the offense and hope for the best. Because at the end of the day, we can't predict who Russ is going to have the best chemistry with, or if he'll just have the same amount of chemistry with everyone. The Broncos' depth in terms of their pass catchers suggests that all of Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton, Tim Patrick, even Albert Okwuegbunam should be plenty involved, but you just never know for sure. Look at the Rams last year. So many people drafted Robert Woods over Cooper Kupp because they assumed at worst it would be an even split between the two. It wasn't. Stafford and Kupp just had that connection. That's why your best bet, especially if you're in multiple leagues, is to grab some exposure to each of these Broncos pass catchers so you don't miss out if someone does turn into Russ's favorite target. And to all my Javonte Williams stands out there, I'm sure you probably wanted to hear more about him, but honestly, my projection for him is pretty cut and dry. If Melvin Gordon leaves and the Broncos don't bring in another notable name at running back, Javonte is a top 5 overall pick in fantasy as far as I'm concerned. But given the rumors so far and Russ's connection with Melvin Gordon, remember they were teammates at Wisconsin back in 2011, I don't think he's going anywhere. Even still, with how much more efficient this offense should be and all the scoring opportunities they should have, I still think Javonte can slot in as a back-end RB1 with Gordon being a mid-range RB2. So that's where I'm at with this Broncos trade. Let me know what you guys think and how you think the Broncos skill players are going to perform now that they have an actual quarterback. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time.